What is the true version of Christianity? This is something that I questioned myself when I was going through my process of deconstructing from Christianity. It's also something that was brought to bear on our live today, and we go live every Monday through Friday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. One of the believers said that they are not looking to follow the warped version of Christianity that most people are following today, that they are following the true version of Christianity. When I asked them to describe this true version of Christianity, they only spoke of the two greatest commandments that the Jesus character spoke of, which was to love God the Father with all your heart and soul. And if there is a second, it would be to love your neighbor as you love yourself. But what I found is that this reader, this believer, does not truly understand what the original version of Christianity would have been or could have been, nor did they understand what was meant when it says to love the Father and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. In this video, I will explain it all. So in order for you to conceptualize this, what you must first understand is that you cannot read the Bible today with the mindset of what you think it means today. That would be you interjecting your own personal perspective on it. And that perspective is based on how we understand things in our modern world. You first have to go back and understand what the writers of the first century, second century would have understood at that time frame and what they would have meant. Also, you have to understand what the culture of that day would have thought of in considering a itinerant preacher named Jesus or Yeshua walking around making these quotes, if these quotes are to be believed. So when you read your Bible, you have to be able to understand that there is a difference between each one of the Gospels and the letter writings of Paul. Each one of them are coming from a different perspective, and each one of them are trying to gain the attention of a different audience. You see, Matthew and Mark are actually written geared towards those Jewish communities that were converting over to Christianity, while the letters of Paul and the Gospel of Luke are more akin to the people who were Gentiles. And so these would be the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, and everybody else within the Roman Empire who would be looking at this religion from their perspective. And in their perspective, are they going to submit themselves to the laws and traditions of a Jewish people that they thought was beneath them? Of course they wouldn't. So this is why the letters of Paul are geared more towards the Gentiles. This is why the letters of Paul were the ones that were accepted by the church after the Nicene Council, and for the next 25 to 30 years becomes the canon of your Bible and becomes the overwhelming majority of the doctrine of your Bible. So what would early Christianity have looked like in and around 50 CE, 70 CE? It would have been a hodgepodge of different forms of Christianity that was being taught by different people. You see, in Judea and other parts of the Levant, the type of Christianity that would have been taught is a more Jewish-centric style of Christianity, and we can see this in the writings of Matthew. When Matthew says that, has the Jesus character saying that the Pharisees sits on the throne of Moses. Do what they teach you, but do not follow what they do. Meaning that the Pharisees are following the law or teaching the law, but yet they are not following the law. So therefore, if you want to follow Jesus, you still have to follow the law. Jesus also says that not one tittle of the law shall pass before heaven and earth passes away. Meaning that not when he died on the cross, because when he died on the cross, did heaven and earth pass away? Of course it didn't. It's still here today. It will not be until Jesus supposedly makes his triumphant return that then heaven and earth will pass away and a new heaven and a new earth will be established. At least that's the teachings. So therefore, a Jewish-centric Christianity would be that you still have to follow the law. As one of the callers said that they are looking to follow true Christianity, and they quoted the lines from Matthew 22, where it says, where the Pharisees were asking Jesus a question. What is the greatest law of God? And he said that it is to love the Father with all your heart, mind, and soul, and to love your neighbor as you would love yourself if there was a second one. In order to follow the law with all your heart, in order to follow the law, to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, you have to follow the laws by which this God in the Old Testament has indicated demonstrates your love to this God. So therefore, when you look at the fact that Jesus is saying the law will not pass away and that you are to follow what the Pharisees teach you and that you have to love this God, all of that indicates that you are to follow the Jewish-centric laws, meaning the high holy days, the day of the Sabbath. And remember in my previous video where I talked about what day is the actual Sabbath. Early Christians may have met on a Sunday to break bread and drink wine in remembrance of the Jesus resurrection, but they met every day, and the Sabbath was still kept on Saturday. It was later conventions that changed it totally until Sunday worship, and this is usually indicated by the Roman presence within Christianity. So if you were wanting to follow something that was closer to what the Jesus character was teaching, it would be you following the Jewish-centric style of Christianity. But most of Christianity today has fallen into where it follows the Paulinian version of Christianity because Paul's type of Christianity was more appealing to those Romans and Greeks and all other people who looked down upon the Jewish sects who were revolting because they wanted to maintain their temples and wanted to maintain the temple tax. And they thought that a Messiah would come that would overthrow the government. So they were looked down upon. The Romans thought that they were the greatest of ease. So therefore, Paulinian Christianity is the type that prevailed in the government of Rome. And therefore, Paulinian Christianity, with its more anti-Jewish traditions, meaning that you don't have to follow the law, that all you have to do is ask for forgiveness, that all you have to do is believe in Jesus, that those types of mentalities is what pushed and allowed for the Paulinian style of Christianity to become the primary type of Christianity that the majority of people today are following. Now, of course, there were other types of Christianity that was around at that time frame. One of the most prominent ones were the Gnostics and the Coptics. And although the Gnostics and Coptics had a lot of similarities, their primary thing is that the God of the Old Testament was an evil God, Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, and that Jesus was speaking of a new God, that the true God is one that only by obtaining knowledge and mysticism and understanding in that secret knowledge can you find salvation. That it wasn't through the Jewish traditions, nor was it through this Paulinian mindset of following along the doctrines of a church, of an organization, but it was purely through you gaining knowledge, superior knowledge over understanding the superior realm and not the lower letter matter physical world. This type of cosmology or theology is what was prevalent in places like Egypt. And because it was prevalent in places like Egypt, and the Egyptians, the Coptic Church in Egypt were the ones who taught the Ethiopians, this is where you see that they maintain books and understandings that are larger than the books and understandings of most of the Christians. This is why they have more books. This is why they accept the book of Enoch. They accept many other books that are a part of the what is known as the Apocrypha, because they were taught more of a mystic version of Christianity, and that was the prevailing type that was being taught to them. Now, of course, the Ethiopians didn't get this teaching until around 330, so they were very late. But the Coptic style of Christianity, the Gnostic style of Christianity, was definitely in Egypt during the time frame that it was also in Rome, in Turkey, in Greece, in all these other places of the Roman Empire. So what is the true version of Christianity? The world will never know, because there is no true version of Christianity. From day one, there were many various versions of Christianity. And this is why there are many various doctrines. And this is also why there are many various versions of denominations. So at the end of the day, those who claim to be Christians, followers of Jesus, that is a Christian, a follower of Jesus, not the church, not the organization, Jesus, believe that they are understanding the true teachings, but most are just mixing a version of the Jewish type, the Jewish Jesus and the Greek Paul. And simply that. There is no version of true Christianity, which is one of the reasons why it is all just a facade, something made up and created by man. Therefore, we deconstruct from it. I hope this has been helpful. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non negotiable. Good journey. Goodbye.